Good morning. It's almost 9 o'clock, so I just gonna have to run to the other entry of the hotel for my tour to Peggy's Cove. But I just wanted to show you a little bit of this beautiful morning in Halifax. It's absolutely gorgeous weather. It looks like it's very mild. And this is a little bit of the hotel inside. I just have an amazing breakfast. It was absolutely delightful. I post some pictures in my Instagram, so for you to see it. But yeah, this is 9 in the morning, so I'm just gonna go get to the other entry. It's not that far from here to get my tour. And yeah, and then I will put another video later on once I come back from Peggy's Cove. Bye.
Missile test. We're about the fourth largest explosion. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later when we get down to the harbor. But when the explosion happened, the teacher took the heavy blinds inside of the school, drew the blinds, and that prevented all of the glass from going into people's eyes. And that's why, because of the explosion, we became a premier city for teaching blind people. So a lot of blind people from all over Canada started to travel here to get educated. Now over here, I really wanted to show you this. This is the Halifax town clock. It was built in 1803 by Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, and he was the CEO here at the garrison. And the reason I like to mention this so much is because we just redid the clock, as you could probably tell. It's all brand new with all the paint, and we redid the hands in a nice gold color. It's just beautiful. And the reason why it was built is because of all of the alcoholics in our town. I'm not even kidding. So all the boys that worked up here on the Citadel actually used to live along Brunswick Street, which is the street we just came up. It was actually called Barrack Street at that time because all of the military barracks were there. So that's where they slept. And they were never on time for work in the morning. They always had to be at the front gate of the Citadel here at 9 a.m. And they never were, because they were always out at the ale house or down on Argyle Street, pretty lit up, if you know what I'm saying. They were always pretty drunk. And of course the clock fixed that. It was a large container port that's right behind Pavilion 23, which brings in a lot of shipping, mainly because Halifax is one shipping day closer to Europe than Boston and New York. So you can save 2 days worth of shipping fuel if you pull your stuff into here and pay the port fees. This is Pier 21, and this is the Canadian Museum of Immigration. If you come in here and you think your family immigrated to Canada, you actually might be able to find the family documents of your great-grandmother or something, right? It's crazy. Sadly, well, I guess it's pretty cool actually. My family immigrated here so long ago that I can't, like, this really doesn't mean anything to me. But if you're fourth or fifth generation, you should definitely go check it out. And of course, there's a lot of different information about how we brought in different types of slave trade and how we brought in new immigrants, and it's just a really great history. My professor, Dan Conlon, is the main guy there. He teaches me piracy, so I'm going to tell you a lot of different stuff about the pirates of Atlantic Canada. But he'll take you on a tour of that place that'll blow your mind. It really, really cool stuff. And over here, of course, this is the farmer's market. Now, if you love local stuff and you love getting your fresh bread and vegetables, this is a great place to go. But it's also one of the most environmentally friendly buildings in North America, as it only uses its own gray water for the toilets and taps and whatnot. And it's got a green roof, it's got solar, it's got wind energy on the roof as well. It's really great. Now, look at this. This is Garrison Brewery. This is my favorite place in the world. I was actually here yesterday. My girlfriend and I got 2 flights. It was fantastic. Drank a little too much, but I'll be honest with you, it was an amazing time. And they have every beer. Like, they've got your lemon beers, raspberry, because why? It's a graveyard. It's nothing too, like, cool, to be honest with you. But I definitely want to just show you the layout of it and whatnot. So the Titanic, of course, sank off the coast of Newfoundland back on April 12th in 1912, pretty sure. No, it was 1917.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't think so. It was 12.
It was 12, right?
Yeah, oh,
Because 1917 was the explosion. Sorry,
Yeah.
I always get them confused. My apologies. But anyway, April 12th, or April 15th, 1912.
Yeah, there you
Bang.
go.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, guys. This is where I asked. You got to bear with me here. But basically, the ship sank off of the coast of Newfoundland, and if it had sunk about a month later than it did, it sunk in April. If it sunk in May, some people probably would have lived. And that's mainly because of the ice in the harbor at that time. St. John's, which is in Newfoundland, was completely iced in. And at the time, they didn't have the technology to break the ice to get out to save the people. That meant that Halifax had to send a rescue mission up to help the people of the Titanic. It took us about 21 hours to get there, but from St. John's, it would have taken about 3 hours to get there, right? So right over here, this is the Titanic gravesite. So you can see kind of all the concrete and how they're all the same headstone. So a lot of them, and this is the reason why I stay away from just going in, a lot of them are unidentified. So it's just bare headstone with no name or nothing. But we did identify one of the bodies very recently. It was a 2-year-old girl named Sydney Paris or something like that. It was pretty cool. She was, of course, the toddler that they found on the road, or floating in the harbor. When they arrived or rather floating in the ocean, when they arrived to recover the ship. And they'd never been able to find out our identity until recently, because we've been able to get DNA from bone marrow. And of course, the DNA technology has improved so much over the last little while that we've been able to identify more folks, which is great. Another area of this graveyard, because there's a lot of different people buried here, a lot of old, a lot of new. You can see kind of this is the older area of the graveyard here. But this is where a lot of people will or would have been buried during the Halifax explosion. So if you take a look on the left here, this says, "Here lie the buried unidentified victims of the Halifax harbor explosion." So it's a plaque that just commemorates their memory. And on December 6th of 1917, there it is, the explosion happened. And if you guys don't know the story, it's pretty cool. It happened when the Mont Blanc was coming into the harbor on that day. The Mont Blanc was an artillery ship, all right? It had a bunch of TNT, dynamite, picric acid, gunpowder, anything that exploded, it had on board. And the other ship was the Emo, which was a Norwegian vessel that had nothing on it, actually. It was going to New York empty to bring relief supplies to the people of Belgium. Now, they were coming in the harbor, the Mont Blanc was coming in, and the Emo was leaving. And sadly, because of a miscommunication, they ended up in the same shipping lane. Then, of course, the Mont Blanc signs off a little toot toot, just to say, hey, maybe you should get out of our way because we have the right of way. And then the Emo did the same beep beep and the same signal, which basically meant the same thing, right? We have the right of way, please yield. And nobody decided to yield that day until the very last minute. The Mont Blanc pulled out on toward the Dartmouth side of the harbor, and the Emo, of course, slammed into it. And it wasn't really a slam or a crash. It was more of a brush, and that was kind of the issue. They scraped together, and because the ships were made out of metal, the scraping caused friction, which caused sparks, and the sparks flew from that reaction onto the deck of the Mont Blanc, and before you knew it, a little bit of picric acid had spilt on the deck, and that was enough to cause a fire. The fire was happening, and the crew of the Mont Blanc got on their lifeboat and rowed and rowed and rowed towards Dartmouth. At the time, they spoke French, nobody else did. So they were screaming, "Run, run, it's gonna blow up!" But they were saying it in French, and nobody knew what they were saying. So the crew of the Mont Blanc decided to start kidnapping children. And that's a true story. They ran up to families and took their kids and ran away so they would run away from the ship. And luckily they ended up saving hundreds of people like that. But on the Halifax side, there was no means for warning. So about 2,000 people died when the explosion happened. And that was because they were on the harbor watching this boat. I mean, seriously, we're driving around our city today. What if we see a boat on fire in the middle of the harbor? What are we gonna do?
Yeah, we're gonna stop
And take pictures, you know, just like we got our phones, right? Oh, look at this, Snapchat, woohoo! And that's exactly what they were doing back then. Of course, there was no Snapchat or nothing, but they wanted to go down and see what was going on. And sadly, it didn't work out so well. And then they would come into these different little coves and whatnot to hide, because nobody knew. Not if they weren't from this area, they had no idea how to navigate this really complicated set of coves and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. I generally like to take a little stop. Oh yeah, this is my spot. Sorry, fired on the brake. Ooh. Usually just like to stop here. Oh look, the water's faded away. What's up? Feel free to get out and take a look around. Pop those ears. Oh yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that you could still get onto this board. I like coming here because it's a really accurate depiction of what everybody in Nova Scotia wishes their life was.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
it's very beautiful. All of these homes are valued at over $1 million. I mean, all of the ones that are huge. Obviously, there's a few in the back there that don't have water frontage that are you know, 500, 600, 700. But this is a very popular area. French Village. Pretty cool. Also, during the summer, this is where I usually stop. There's this little gift shop here. This is Albert's gift shop. Beautiful place for some photos. He'll come out with his Canon and take your professional picture.
Oh, there we go.
So, pretty good spot. You've got me here now. Of course, a lot of beaches as well. This water looks deathly cold, because it is. But if you're it's summertime, July, and you want to just hang out on the beach, Queensland Beach, which is over on the other side. So we kind of took a left down to this road here. If we had continued straight for another 10 minutes, we would have got there. It's a beautiful beach. So if you ever come back, go there if you can. The water's usually about 18 or 19 degrees in the summertime. Now, let's just be honest, that's pretty cold. My parents have an in-ground pool that's like 18 by 40. It's ridiculously big. So for me, I go from the 28-degree pool to this, and I get cold. But you know what? It's nice to have a dip in the bay, because it feels amazing. It's really nice.
She went down last October in a pouring driving rain. The skipper, he'd been drinking and the baby felt no pain. Too close to 3 Mile Rock and she was dealt her mortal blow. And the Mary Ellen Carter soul.
There's a song about a boat. Okay, so over here on the right side, this is the Swiss Air Flight 111 Memorial, where a plane actually crashed back in 1998. No, back in 1998? Yeah, I believe so. Because I wasn't born yet, but my friend Brennan was. Anyway, it's pretty crazy. The plane caught on fire because they didn't wire their DVD players in very well, and they crashed off of the coast here. My best friend's father was actually responsible, because he was the volunteer fire chief at the time in the community. So he was the one that actually got all the fishermen together, got on their boats, went out and started bringing in the remains. So as you can see in front of us outside of the windshield here, this is Peggy's Cove. Here, let me just do this. Yeah, this is just a beautiful place. As you can tell, like just by the landscape, actually, it's changed quite a bit. And that's mainly because a gigantic glacier over the coast of Atlantic Canada was here for thousands of years during the last ice age. And the glacier that actually came from the North Atlantic and moved down here brought all of these different granite rocks and then just littered them all over the place. So that's why there's like, you just see random rocks just kind of up on a hill or wherever. That's why they're there. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, so I'm here in Peggy's Cove. I put the video of the ride as well because there was a lot of nice places to see. So that's the lighthouse. So this is the advantage of coming in this time. So you have Peggy's Cove for yourself. As you see, it's only maybe a couple of forks more around, and it's well worth it because it's a place to enjoy with peace and with no crowds. Interesting history. Probably you saw in my last video a bit of the history around Peggy's Cove, and a very interesting ride, very fun ride with tour guide we took here in Peggy's Cove. It's absolutely gorgeous. The Atlantic Ocean, the view of the Atlantic Ocean. House. It's really windy. It's not that cold, but the wind makes it very, very difficult. So I'm just gonna put my touch the lighthouse. I'm not gonna venture too much with the rocks because it's kind of slippery. But it is a beautiful day. Just gonna leave everybody to enjoy the view of Peggy's Cove from the lighthouse. The houses over there, the houses in this little town, they're different colors because they were initially this is a place that it was colonized, or it was home for people from Germany. So they brought a little bit of the style of the houses, and there's a different colors, blue, red, different colors in the houses too. Cove Lighthouse. Okay, this looks like a very interesting chairs. Chairs are beautiful. Chairs. The best view. The chairs with the best view. And the Atlantic coast or the east coast of Canada. Tour guide Adrian is amazing. He's been very knowledgeable. Still have a little bit of time until Adrian comes back. Little town, Peggy's Cove town. Absolutely beautiful, guys. Just look at this stuff. It's gorgeous. And I can see a little bit outside. It's cold and many things are not open. But I think it is this because I'm gonna be with the crowds and oh, look at this. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. It's an absolutely amazing view. So peaceful. So peaceful. Very peaceful. I really recommend to anyone who wants to come and explore Nova Scotia. It is has an amazing vibe of tranquility. You come in looking for self-care, for reflecting. This is the place. I just want to show a little bit